The Leaning Tower of Pisa was begun in 1173 as a bell tower for the Pisa Cathedral. It began to lean when construction was started on the second story. Because of superstitions, work was immediately halted for many years. The lean is caused by soft, shifting soils. It was finally completed in the 1300s. The Pisa Cemetery was built from 1200 to 1300 for burying important citizens, like Fibonacci. Pisa was heavily bombed in World War II. When Nazis hid in the complex, a World War II Allied pilot was directed to bomb the tower complex. He recognized this as a historically important place, so he decided to miss the target. He did hit the cemetery, which was restored. Every Italian town pays homage to Giuseppe Garibaldi with a piazza, a street, or a sculpture. Garibaldi led 1,000 red-shirt soldiers to make Italy a unified country under a king. Italy did not become a republic until 1945. This was the first election in Italy when women were allowed to vote. The result was the Republicans voted to oust the monarchy by 0.05%. The School Normale was began by Napoleon. It was modeled on a sister school in France. However, Cosimo Medici, who provided nothing for the school, was able to have his statue and the Medici coat of arms on front of the building. Marcia explains that we will not venture down the path which leads to the nesting gulls, or we would be attacked aggressively. Sure enough, we glimpse the sentry gull guarding the path. We quietly pass to the trail we are meant to travel. Acanthus leaves were the first to be carved into ancient Greek and Roman architecture. I dropped my journal along the trail. All the notes I had taken on our trip were gone, but the guides have a network. Marcia mentioned my lost journal, and her fellow guide came right over to return it. So you get the benefit of a longer iMovie. Outside the main gate of Porto Venere are containers where people could buy wine and olive oil in the 1600s. St. Peter's was begun as a pagan temple dedicated to Mars in the 5th century. It became a Catholic church and expanded in the 700s and in the 1100s. In the 19th century, the English poet Lord Byron traveled to Porto Venere and loved to swim in these turbulent waters. The Italian Park Service built this monorail to ease farmers' lives in the vineyards, to keep alive the history and culture of Liguria. Why is the fountain divided in half? It was built for doing laundry, to wash, then rinse. The Alpine Club reconstructed this chapel, which is dedicated to all the fallen and alpine guides who were part of the World War II resistance. Kilometra zero means what you get here is local, not farther away than 1 kilometer. The old town of Levanto. San Andrea is built in the Ligurian style with black and white stripes. San Andrea is the patron saint of fishermen. When people in Liguria had wealth, they wanted to show it through their elegant homes. But cities were too crowded to build bigger houses, so painters created a technique called trompe-l'œil, which means to trick the eye. These three-dimensional facades were created using shadows. Portofino is named for Port Delfino, which means Port of the Dolphins. Black and white stones are typical for a Ligurian mosaic. This one represents Portofino with a picture of a dolphin. When we get on and off the New York subway, we always hear, "Mind the gap," and we do. So I was surprised when we got on and off this ferry and needed to pay attention to this large gap with no reminders. Columbus was more of a merchant navigator than a scientist. During his time, Genoa's products were grain, wool, wine, olive oil, and salt. Salt was so valuable it was used as money. The word sail derived from the word sal, which means salt. This rudimentary compass and hourglass were the only navigation instruments available during Columbus's lifetime. This ship in Genova's port is where Pirates of the Caribbean was filmed. Most people could not read or write during medieval times, but they could recognize symbols of saints. San Lorenzo is the patron saint of cooks. He was martyred by being roasted on a grill. Our hiking trail today is a mule trail which was used during World War II by resistance fighters who hid in the forest. Noli used to be a fishing town. This giant frying pan was used to cook fish for the crowds who came every year for the Town Fish Festival. Noli is now a tourist destination with excellent restaurants. This delightful, delicious food sculpture was brought to our table when we ordered fish and vegetables. We did a lot of rock and scree scrambling to arrive at this bandit hideout, Grotto of the Brigantine. Santa Margherita Church thrived here until the 1600s. When the plague of leprosy came, the church died. Noli had a population of 10,000 people in the 1400s. The walls you see were to protect it from land invaders. These original protective walls have been used for people's homes. Because of an earthquake in 1878, the whole town of Busana was relocated. Busana Vecchia, old Busana, was abandoned until a group of artists in the 1960s made this town their home.